Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Kompasa. There's a lot of things that's been going on. Russia has opened up a naval or military base in Sudan, and Russia has also accused the Ukrainians for using chemical weapons in Ukraine, basically in the war. So I thought we can go over that a little bit shortly. It's not a very long article. So it says here, it's from the TASS news agency, it's the official government news agency of Russia. It says Ukrainian forces use chemical weapons along Artyomovsk front line, DPR official said. Yan Gagin stressed that Ukrainian troops made no secret that they had banned weapons, posting videos showing imported gas grenades and drones designed for dropping them. Ukrainian forces used chemical weapons along the Soledar and Artyomovsk front lines on Sunday, which was February 6th. Yan Gagin, an advisor to the Donetsk People's Republic DPR leader, told TASS. Unit commanders reported that Ukraine had used chemical weapons along several front lines, mostly the Soledar and Artyomovsk ones. Some fighters are experiencing severe dizziness, nausea, and vomiting, he said. Gagin pointed out that Ukraine had used chemical weapons before. It happened along the entire front line, and substances causing nausea, choking, and cough were sprayed from special containers installed in drones, he noted. Gagin also said that Ukrainian troops made no secret that they had banned weapons, posting videos showing imported gas grenades and drones designed for dropping them. The DPR official emphasized the need to record cases involving the use of weapons banned by the Geneva Convention and send the information to the UN. Now, do you know why I believe this? Not because I'm pro-Russian or pro this and that or anti-Ukraine or whatever. It's the fact that the Ukrainians are notoriously known for filming a lot of their crimes. And this is a war crime. Chemical weapons, right? You can't use that shit, according to the Geneva Convention, right? But there has been amples of evidence of Ukrainian soldiers filming when they're shooting Russian prisoners of war in the kneecaps, urinating on them, stabbing them in the eye, castrating them. I mean, they have done horrific things on video, and they're just known to do these things. I don't know why they film this shit. I know it's supposed to give a psychological effect on the Russian public and people. I remember there were videos. I haven't seen them personally. It's very graphic shit, but it's been reported in many places. And they released this stuff on Telegram, which is a very popular social media app in Russia as well as Ukraine and many of the Eastern Bloc countries. They used to film when they had captured Russian soldiers, and they would call their girlfriends, mothers, or wives, and while they were before they're gonna execute them and stuff like that. So shit like this. The Ukrainians are known for these horrific methods. So the fact that they film themselves is not surprising at all. The Ukrainians are known for that. The Ukrainian soldiers, that is to say. Not all of them, but specifically let's just say the more ideologically, the very ideologically leaning ones. But anyway, moving on to what's going on in East Africa. And we're also gonna read through a comment by the foreign minister of Uganda, because Russia and China, well, China has done a lot of moves in Africa for, I don't know, maybe 20 plus years now, right? Even before it turned into a little bit more of a state capitalist country, during the Mao era, China was very supportive of many African independence movements. And now, as of recently, these latest years, Russia has also, and especially now with the war in Ukraine, they have become more involved in Africa. And we talked before about how the Francophone countries, some of them like Burkina Faso, like Mali, threw out their French former colonial, you know, former colonial, I don't want to use the word, but masters or whatever, yeah. They basically told them to take their military and, you know, fuck off, because they didn't finish the job properly in defeating Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb and ISIS and other Islamist groups. A big problem that they caused, by the way, by overthrowing Muammar Gaddafi, right? Because when Gaddafi was overthrown, a bunch of weapons was spread across the Sahel. You know, they happened to end up in the hands of Akim, Boko Haram, and Daesh, right? As well as the Tuareg independence movement, but that is not a religious fanatic movement, right? That's a different movement. But nonetheless, I thought we could read this article. So it says here, it's from the Associated Press. Sudan military finishes review of Russian Red Sea base deal. Sudan's ruling military concluded a review of an agreement with Russia to build a navy base on the Red Sea in the African country, two Sudanese officials said Saturday. They said the deal was awaiting the formation of a civilian government and a legislative body to be ratified before it takes effect. The officials said Moscow met Sudan's most recent demands, including providing more weapons and equipment. They cleared all our concerns. The deal has become okay from the military side, the one official said. The officials did not provide further details and spoke on conditions of anonymity to discuss internal deliberations. A spokesman for the Sudanese military declined to comment. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov also said Thursday the deal still needs ratification by Sudan's yet-to-be-formed legislative body. Sudan has been without a parliament since a popular uprising forced the military overthrow of longtime autocrat Omar al-Bashir in April 2019. The country has been mired in political chaos since an October 2021 military coup derailed its short-lived transition to democracy. To be honest with you, the chances of Sudan becoming a Western-style democracy is kind of laughable. I mean, most countries in Africa and the Middle East are not going to become Western-style democracies because they're very tribal, or because they are surrounded by often Western imperialist and Zionist imperialist elements, right? Which uses often that clan-based sectarian split that exists in a lot of these countries. And Sudan has a lot of ethnicities and tribes, I think up to like 600 tribes, right? If I'm not mistaken, Omar al-Bashir, his tribe is the Ja'alin tribe. And the people that rule in Sudan now, I think it was General, what's his name? Not Osman al-Hussein, it was Dagalo, yeah. He is a general, right? Of the RPS, I think RDS, I think Rapid Defense Forces, which used to be the Janjaweed back in the days, when they were fighting non-Arab tribes in the Darfur area. But nonetheless, the deal, which surfaced in December 2021, is part of Moscow's efforts to restore a regular naval presence in various parts of the globe. It was reached during al-Bashir's reign. The agreement allows Russia to set up a naval base. Sorry about that. To set up a naval base with up to 300 Russian troops, and to simultaneously keep up to 4 Navy ships, including nuclear-powered ones, in the strategic port Sudan on the Red Sea. The base would ensure the Russian Navy's presence in the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean and spare its ships the need for long voyages to reach the area, according to Viktor Bondarev, the former Russian Air Force chief. In exchange, Russia is to provide Sudan with weapons and military equipment. The agreement is to last for 25 years, with automatic extension for 10-year periods if neither side objects. In June 2021, Sudan's Chief of General Staff, General Mohammed Othman al-Hussein, told a local television station that Khartoum would review the agreement. In February last year, General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, commander of the powerful paramilitary RPSF, Rapid Support Forces, sorry, it wasn't Defense Forces, it was Rapid Support Forces, held talks with senior Russian officials in Moscow. Upon his return from the week-long trip, Dagalo said his country didn't have objections to Russia or any other country establishing a base on its territory, as it poses no threat to Sudan's national security. If any country wants to open a base and it is in our interests and doesn't threaten our national security, we have no problem in dealing with anyone, Russian or otherwise. And he has a point that I want to hammer in with the rest of you in here, is that Russia doesn't overthrow governments in these places, right? They have no history of overthrowing governments in Africa. And actually, historically, Russia has often helped and supported, well, back then it was the Soviet Union, anti-colonial movements, right? And we're going to get into that soon in the next article. But we're done here actually with the AP. And yeah, African Nations Foreign Minister, which is the Ugandan Foreign Minister, says it like this: colonizers ask us to be enemies of Russia. Cooperation with Moscow is a matter of life and death for Uganda, J.J. Odongo says. Yeah, and these Western nations, he's absolutely right. These Western nations are telling Africa, African countries that, you know, you have to vote to condemn Russia, and you have to vote to impose sanctions on Russia. That would be suicidal, because a lot of African and Middle Eastern countries are dependent upon Russian and Ukrainian wheat deliveries in order to, you know, make sure people don't go hungry, right? So this is crazy. So Uganda will not succumb to pressure from former colonizers in the West to turn against Russia. As long-standing bilateral relations with Moscow are too important, the Ugandan foreign minister has said. We were colonized and forgave those who colonized us. Now the colonizers are asking us to be enemies of Russia, who never colonized us. Is that fair? Not for us. Their enemies are their enemies. Our friends are our friends. J.J. Odongo told Russia's RIA, Novosti news agency, on Saturday. Exactly. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. Uganda, which was a British protectorate for almost 70 years, enjoyed good relations with the Soviet Union after regaining its sovereignty in 1962. The USSR actively pushed for the decolonization of Africa and supported many of the countries after they became independent. Many of our students were educated in Russia, so why should there suddenly be a problem with us continuing our relationship with Russia, which we did historically? The foreign minister said during the interview given on the sidelines of the African Union summit in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa. Odongo highlighted the importance of military cooperation with Moscow, saying it's a matter of life and death for his country. Most of the military equipment in Uganda is Russian-made. For this reason, despite the so-called sanctions, Uganda must update this equipment to be able to defend itself. And we will continue this cooperation because we must survive, he explained. Uganda was among more than 24 African nations that abstained when the UN voted on Western drafted resolutions condemning Russia over the conflict in Ukraine in March and October last year. Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov visited the Ugandan capital Kampala during his African tour last summer. In his message to the African Union Summit on Saturday, Russian President Vladimir Putin called African nations important and reliable partners for Moscow and expressed a willingness to boost cooperation further in various areas. You see the difference in language between how Russian diplomats talk to leaders of the global south, and in this case in particular African leaders and African peoples, versus how Western leaders do it. Western leaders are busy in exporting values. They talk to, many people, and in this particular case, African peoples, as little children that must be schooled in their values. If you don't do as we say, we will put sanctions on you. We will overthrow your government. We will, I don't know, do all these crazy things, right? Worst case scenario, we'll invade your country or bomb it to smithereens, coup your government. Here's the thing, Africa, among many other places, but African countries, with all due respect, I'm not African, obviously, but I don't think they need a lecture in democracy or, liberal ideas. Like African countries need infrastructure. They are in desperate need of, development in terms of, like I said, infrastructure, right? Schools, hospitals, railways, highways, energy facilities. Like these things are more critical, you know what I mean? A continent that is so rich should not accept, it should be unacceptable that its young people are, being brain drained and dying in the Mediterranean Ocean. Sorry, sea. Mediterranean Sea, right? That to me is unacceptable. And that a lot of its middle class is going, for example, to the United States and studying and don't come back, right? I don't think that's right. I think, Africa and the Chinese are definitely up to this task, you know what I mean? They are definitely working together with their African partners in building all of these things. There's been, major infrastructure projects that's been built in many African countries. And I hope it will go forward, and I hope, eventually poverty and misery will be eradicated, and that people on the African continent will have a dignified and, all in all, just a good life quality, man. Yeah. Thank you everybody for listening, and please like the video, subscribe, click the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one.